Hey everyone, TimaeuSS here. Welcome to another Etheria Restart video, and today we have a very special one because this is the Rank 1 Guild PvE progression tier list. That's right, you've seen a lot of the PvE, potentially endgame, or the PvP tier list, but I'm here to tell you how we are going to progress most efficiently and going over some of the really strong characters moving forward. Of course, we have our special guest here today, and that is going to be the Ultimate Chat Gamer, who is from Scarlet, same guild I'm in, and you can see we were rank 1 in the closed beta test, so he's here to help explain some of the choices, as he's of course the author behind this progression tier list. So say hi.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ultimate Chad Gamer, guide maker for Scarlet. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, so you can see that we do have quite a few categories, and of course, starting off, we are going to talk about the most broken characters for progression. But before we start, make sure that you check out my compendium page. It has all of the guides we talked about, the Never Luckies progression checklist, as well as the endgame guide. And of course, and this PvE progression tier list will also be added. And later, we have Kekker's RTA and PvP tier list, alongside all of the codes that will be active at launch. So make sure you check this link in the description as well as in the comments. So anyhow, without further ado, let's get started. So right off the bat, we see two characters that are broken for progression, and that is going to be Mio and Heinrich. So how did they end up there?
Okay, so first let's go over Heinrich, because that's a unit that people were able to actually play around with in the final beta.
Yep.
It's no surprise that Heinrich is super reliable, does decent damage, but the main thing you're looking at here is his ability to strip buffs with his skill 3. Having somebody that strips buffs, especially as you get into later stages of Aurora and Terramaton where they have immunity, it's going to be very useful to get those debuffs stripped off. And since Heinrich is a dark element character, and he can, go against all the bosses without having element weakness, and in addition, he likely scales the best in the PvP just because he does decent damage. He is going to be the best option for that buff stripper, which is going to place him into an absolute asset to have for your overall account progression.
Okay.
And then the other unit in this tier is going to be Mio. So this was a character that was revealed in the Hyper Talk. I honestly have no idea what they were thinking of making this unit. They decided to take Kraken and Marvel and, kind of do a little fusion. She's going to be extremely good. Obviously, both of these characters are LDs, so you might have to re-roll for them. But what Mio provides is, in addition to CC, which is going to be very valuable for Doki Doki, as you want to be able to crowd control the mobs, to be able to make them more susceptible to damage. She can also manipulate the turn meter, just like Marvel's ultimate. And we've seen how much impact Marvel has had, even in progression, being able to just kick the boss back in the turn cycle. So having both of those combined is definitely going to make her an absolutely busted unit going into the launch of this game.
Yeah, even despite the nerfs coming out from Marvel, for Mio herself, she didn't really get any changes as a new character. Having the best from Kraken as well as Marvel just makes her absolutely bonkers. And of course, these two, LD, as you've said, it stands for Light and Darkness units. A bit more rare in comparison, but hey, if you're going for reroll targets, these would be the ones. Now, moving on, the core for progression, and it's very interesting to see because we have got a couple of free characters. For those of you that don't know, Vienna's, of course, the free SSR that you'll get as you start the game, a really strong DPS of the fire or red type, and Ramocha is going to be super core for boss fights such as Doki Doki, and she's available as a RGB character in the selector. And we've got the casual. This one is the one that AoE sleeps the enemy with the attack down. Again, super good for Doki for a crowd control, as well as being available as part of the story box selector. So yeah, all of these characters you will be able to get as a free-to-play player. Not to mention Day 7 grants you Linglol, of course, our free-to-play healer in this section. Now, any unit that stands out among these four for the core for progression that you want to talk about?
It's difficult to pick one because, all four of them are here for a reason. They all do incredible work when it comes to progression. I guess one I'd really like to go over is Real Mocha. So obviously, as we saw in the patch notes, Tiamat has been nerfed quite significantly going into the launch of the game, and this is the kind of DPS that a lot of people relied on for progressing Doki Doki in the final beta, myself included. And a lot of people in the final beta weren't really anticipating exactly how strong Rilmoka was going to be in this scenario, as she's able to quite literally just insta-kill one of the mobs, cleave 100%, and kill everything with high enough investment. Truly a remarkable DPS to have for progression.
For sure. And all of these, once again, are easier to obtain, but they offer so much value to your account. And you can see that moving forward, we have a lot of choices for strong progression characters, and starting us off, of course, is Gray in that #1 spot as the free SR character that everyone will get essentially at the start of the game, being able to buff your team with crit and provide AoE down. Super useful, and you'll see him in a lot of the content, followed by a similar character in Dina, in which case she is more of a single target damage amplifier, a defense down, invulnerable, as well as some action bar manipulation makes her super good as well. On top of that, next to her, we're gonna see the SR Sania, who got a slight nerf. She no longer heals when she's being crowd controlled. Before, even if she's stunned or slapped at the end of the turn, she'll be able to heal 2 of your allies and of course apply the spell as well. So these 3 SR characters right off the bat are going to be super good for progression. What are your thoughts on some of the changes, or I would say nerfs, for Sania and Dina?
So I mean, Dina, I kind of looked at the nerf and I kind of just shrugged a little bit, because the main reason why I'm using Dina is because she is probably the best breaker that you can have, and by breaker I mean defense breaker, defense debuffer, that you can have for your team for progression, just because on top of defense down, she's also inflicting 2 additional debuffs. They didn't affect the hit rates of those at all. They didn't really touch her S3. They just touched some action bar manipulation, which seemed to be more of a system-wide change, because they nerfed pretty much anything that had action bar manipulation. So I don't think that was necessarily targeted towards Dina. But yeah, the nerfs don't really affect how you're going to be using Dina in progression at all. And then as far as the Sanya nerfs, that's, you know, it's a little unfortunate. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are still going to be using Sanya. She is going to be your best alternative for Doki Doki if you don't have Lingluo, because she, like you said, is available on day 7. But also she does have color advantage into Doki Doki, and I mean, she still has access to great heals, and she still has access to revive, which is definitely something that shouldn't be overlooked when looking at characters for progression.
Yeah, definitely a very useful mechanic. Now, Gray, a lot of people are on the fence about whether or not you fully invest, which means adding his skills up all the way to +5 on both skill 2 and skill 3. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that there are multiple ways that you can go about it. Like with Dina, Gray is also an option as your defense breaker. He's actually quite good to have early on, because the 30% crit rate can really help you out when you're not able to get fully developed module builds on your teams yet, and your crit ratios may be a bit lacking. But overall, I mean, I've seen success either way. I think it's ultimately down to the choice of the player, whether they decide to go hard and, you know, 6-star Gray, level his skills and all that stuff, or, you know, if they decide to lean on alternative options such as Chloros. But I mean, the main difference is, like you said, Gray's free. Everybody gets him. He's always going to be available. And I have seen some absolutely terrifying Grays in PvP, mostly from my guild, during the final beta. So, I mean, you're definitely not going to regret investing into him. But, you know, if you're like a waifu player, or, you know, you just don't like Gray that much, I mean, it's not end-all be-all to put a lot of investment into him. It's very easy to operate with other... That's why Gray's not in the core tier, right? Because there's other breakers that you can run at the end of the day.
I see. Yeah, no, makes sense, totally. Now we've got a couple SSRs next to the strong choices for progression SRs. So the SSRs we're going to talk about next is Freya, of course, the first rate up banner character, and with Shada, who got a very decent buff, and Bjorn, and of course Rosa, one of my favorite characters. So yeah, thoughts about these 4?
Okay, so Freya, I feel like a lot of people have been undermining Freya lately. And I mean, she did get a slight nerf, again, to turn meter, right? Because that was kind of a sweeping change.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are starting to become skeptical on the value of Freya which is kind of confusing to me because I feel like Freya is really good for smoothing out your progression. She gives a large suite of buffs. She has a unique debuff that is only available to her character, which is Nightmare. Which allows the enemy to take increased damage, and then you heal if you attack them. So it's like an additional multiplier on your damage. A lot of times, if you're trying to, stack different debuffers together, their debuffs can, their utility can sometimes overlap. Like if you wanted to run Dina and Grey together, they both have defense down. But Freya provides her own unique debuff. She still does. 70% is still a really high base chance to push back the turn meter. So she's still going to be excellent at slight turn meter manipulation. And overall, she's not like at the tippity top, but she's still going to be a great unit to use for your account progression. Jada got quite a few buffs. Obviously, we can't really test those buffs in practice. We kind of have to go by what's on paper, but I mean, Jada's going to be a very, very solid option for bosses like Doki Doki and Aurora. Bjorn, God knows why they buffed Bjorn. You're going to probably see him be a bit higher on the PvP list if I were to guess.
Yep.
But yeah, he's going to do absolutely insane damage. Also a buff stripper, if you absolutely need him to do that. But yeah, just another very, very solid blue AoE damage dealer. And then Rosa is one that's very, very, tried and true as of the final beta. Rosa, at that point in time, before the other two got buffed, she was definitely very, very strong at killing Aurora specifically.
Yep.
I had the fastest Aurora clear in the final beta, at the very least on global, and that was utilizing, maybe abusing the Rosa pick, just because of the raw damage output that she has, and because of all the follow-up attacks that you get as you go throughout your turn.
Yeah, it was indeed a sight to behold. She just dishes out so many follow-up attacks, and the amount of damage she does is absolutely crazy. Alright, so moving ahead, we've got 3 shiny stars into the SR sections. Again, Marvel, of course, the character that everyone has been talking about since the closed beta. He was a relatively new character that was just released last beta, and being able to push the enemy in terms of action bar, as well as providing speed down, which means that they take their turns even slower, is a huge boost in most of the campaign, as well as the other boss fights. But now his S3, which I think is the biggest change, the cooldown got increased from 4 to now 5 turns. Do you think this is going to nerf him to a point where he's not going to be used as much as before, or is he still the go-to for a lot of the PvE progression fights?
Marvel is still going to be an excellent option in PvE despite the nerfs. So, I mean, at the end of the day, at the start of combat, he's still going to be able to, he still has a high proc rate on his abilities on his S3. He's still going to be able to push back the turn meter, which is what you're kind of using him for, to cheese the turn meter to be able to kill the boss more effectively. His skill 1 was nerfed, I believe, which kind of sucks, but ultimately he's still going to be great for cheesing bosses like Terramaton and Aurora. Maybe not, maybe the nerfs make it so he's not as effective at doing that in Inferno, but you're definitely still going to be able to do that in Hell and Nightmare. Also, the cooldown problem, I mean, you're running Codex on him late game anyways when getting into Inferno, so that problem will likely be a non-factor depending on how you decide to approach your team compositions in Inferno. But I mean, I think Marvel's still going to be fine.
Awesome. Okay, and then the other 2 SRs, they're essentially single target damage ceiling characters for the SR units. We've got Victor, who unfortunately did get slightly nerfed as well, and next to him we've got the Deating or Diting. And now, who after Victor's nerf is going to be the premier single target SR character, do you think?
So I think if you're looking at overall damage, dealt by the singular unit and you're looking at PvE progression, I do think Didding is going to have a slight edge now in that single target burst damage. Didding and Victor were equal damage-wise roughly during the final beta, so since Victor was nerfed, Didding kind of wins out in default. In exchange, though, Victor is going to be quite a bit tankier. He's got a bit of bulk. He's got access to shields. I believe he has access to healing as well. So, he is going to do a little bit less damage, but he is going to be bulkier, which could make your runs a bit less volatile. And he can still be like a secondary DPS in certain strategies. So I definitely think they're both good. If you're looking at raw damage, I do think Didding has the edge after the nerf.
For most of the free-to-play players that have only resources to build one of the two in terms of progression, which one would you recommend?
That would be a difficult one. I mean, I guess, again, purely for progression, I would probably say Didding, because when it comes to progression, for the most part, damage is king. So I do think with that higher damage profile, it is going to be easier to get those clear thresholds on those bosses with Didding. I do think if you're more of a PvP-oriented player and you kind of want to branch out, you could invest Victor instead, because again, he's going to be a bit more of a bruiser, a bit more of a consistent pickup in PvP. So it kind of depends, but for the sake of progression, I'm going to say Didding here.
All right, awesome. And next we've got a couple of SSRs again, and of course starting us off is going to be another light and dark character in Lily. Now she's able to push your character, especially mainly if you use it on a DPS. Not only do you get speed buffs, as well as being able to use the first attack with the twin trick applied, you get that follow-up attack guaranteed from that main damage dealer. So absolutely crazy. And of course after that we have Hellkid. I personally didn't have a lot of experience, so I'm keen to hear your thoughts on Hellkid.
Yeah, so Hellkid's just going to be like a great option to play more or less alongside Leanne in a Terramaton scenario. His shields are absolutely massive. Being able to have immunity as well is going to help with Terramaton because he has an arm that inflicts defense break, which can... depending on what your HP and defense is looking like on your team, can be kind of scary. It could put them into one-shot range, but having those big shields and the immunity, and also Hellkid just dealing pretty respectable damage on top of it all is just going to make him a really strong consideration for being able to progress the account.
Yeah, excellent. And speaking of thick shields, we've got Rahu, who of course came off from a post CBT buff in the final patch note, and he's scarier than ever now.
Yeah, I kind of think Rahu is already scary. There was a guy in the guild who raised Rahu, and against the guild boss he did great. I'd watch him Q RTA and Rahu would just kill everybody and just be super tanky because his wrath would continue stacking. This can definitely translate over to progression, especially after the buffs. He is generally a pretty decent option for Doki Doki, as he is a green cleave unit. He deals that AoE damage that those mobs are weak to. So while not providing defensive utility in the level that Hellkid can, you can definitely put an artisan on Rahu, give him a little bit of shielding, and he can definitely help keep your team alive while again doing a considerable amount of damage himself in the Doki Doki fight.
Yeah, for sure. And applying that defense down is always great as well for PvE and PvP. Now, looking at the final character as a strong choice for progression that you can pick up is going to be the post-buff Chloros, who had the, I believe, the S3 buffed in terms of multiplier.
Yeah, so they buffed his skill 3 by 80%, which is quite a lot. There probably weren't a lot of people that played Chloros in the final beta, but essentially how he works is when he uses skill 3, he does a big hit, and then he marks them. And once you do 10 hits, not 10 attacks, like the total hit count reaches 10, then he will do a follow-up attack with, again, his skill 3, and this will just keep happening over and over and over again. Every time you get 10 hits, he follows up. So each of those individual attacks are increased by 80%. So he's definitely going to be an outstanding single target damage dealer. He can definitely be an option for Terramaton if you're looking to go a more risky kill or be killed strategy that involves, just focusing the main body, kind of foregoing focusing the arms and just trying to kill him through raw damage. He's not obviously going to be a core unit because, Leanne can clear Inferno and she's free. But if you like playing life on the if you like living dangerously, Chloros is definitely there as an option for, more so for speed running Terramaton.
For sure, yes. I'm very, very excited to see what kind of damage he can output. Now, moving down, we've got the can definitely be used section. You might be surprised because there are definitely a lot of popular characters and top tier choices in that section. So with the interest of time, I'm going to ask chat here to provide a 2 to 3 sentence summary for each of these characters on the list. Go ahead.
Okay. Beyonton, she's pretty good. She's a decent buffer that can be used. Kloss, excellent debuffer and breaker, but she kind of has role overlap with Gray because they're both green and do AoE defense down. Tsukiyomi, generally, again, solid buffer / opener option, but I generally think Freya and Lily are better for progression. Kraken, decent, has great CC, definitely outshined by Mio, however. Veronica, another stripper option, gives you cheat death, however, has lower base odds on her buff stripping than Heinrich. RC77, decent option for Doki Doki, can stun and apply attack and defense down. Valyrian, more of a skill issue option if you need additional sustain to get through the stages, but she is good at shielding your team and preventing death. Sonya, Fangus, Withered Sonya, Fangus, and Obel are all kind of going to be grouped together because they're the dot team. They are going to be quite good at boss killing, especially in Inferno, but it is going to take some time for them to ramp up compared to other strategies. Red Kazio inflicts speed down, is great for bosses that rely on turn meter tempo, such as Nico Nana. Viper is a blue buff stripper that can be used on Aurora if you're lacking other options, also a decent bruiser in PvP. And then Tiamat, while nerfed, can still provide defensive utility in Doki Doki.
Thank you very much. Wow. That was excellent in summarizing all of these characters. And you guys might see that we also have below this an invest for later, which is in the PvP or the Etheria rally section. Now, if this video you do find helpful, you can leave a comment down below. And also, we will have a PvP tier list alongside future content. Because remember, guys, this is the progression tier list guy in terms of what you want to prioritize resource-wise if you pull these characters and how to best utilize them when you're facing your progression challenges in the first, I would say, first few weeks of Etheria restart server open. So once again, thank you so much, guys, for joining this, and a huge thank you, chat, for coming on and explaining all of this to us.
No problem, anytime.
Alright, so yes, guys, if you're interested, I'll have the guide posted on here as well, and any further updates I'll try to post on my channel. And if you're looking forward to what chat may be cooking, it's very easy. Just open up the leaderboard in the modules in the fights of the boss, and you'll find his name in the speed clear sections most likely. So yes, once again, thank you, and I will see you guys in the next video. And goodbye now.